All right. Good evening, everybody. Dr. Lisle, how are you doing this fine evening today?
Good. That's great. How about yourself?
Pretty good. It's now, I guess it's fall solstice. So now in Southern California, we can get back to the freezing cold weather of 55 degrees. And so, I just probably the
Yeah.
last day I'm going to wear my shorts.
There you. Well, sounds rough. Sounds rough. You have
Yeah.
to brace for it.
Oh, no. It's I don't know how people survive in colder weather. Who knows?
Thank God for global warming. Bump it up a couple degrees. All
All
right.
right. Well, today we are not going to be talking about global warming, but we are going to be talking about community. And the title of the show today is about building a community, among other things, getting over an ex's past. There was a question about non-sexual fetishes, and we have a couple of different ways to strategize if you are born extremely disagreeable. And then we also have a little bit about diet and exercise for women. And then we have a couple of things about the magic 10% and how to make yourself a little bit more fancy or try to get a bit fancier than you might have coming to you with the magic 10%. And then if we can get to it, we are going to get to men being attracted to pregnant women, whether they are or are not. So without any further ado, Dr. Law, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. And again, we love it when callers call. So if anybody feels like calling up the show, it's 657-383-0751. All right. Dear Dr. Lisle, this question is about how do you go about finding a community of like-minded individuals striving for the betterment of the community as a whole without religion in the modern environment? I didn't grow up in a super religious home, but I drifted that way in high school and college. I thought at the time that this was a rational decision and a spiritual call. But I've come to lose those beliefs, and now I realize that my religious beliefs were really just drawing me to the social cachet it yields, but perhaps more importantly, the intense community. I find that aside from being estranged by close friends once I walked away from my faith, it has been a real challenge to find that deep sense of community. I imagine we're drawn to this kind of community due to the natural community our ancestors would have experienced by default. But nowadays, I go to work in a big office. I live in a big city. I have a few close friends across different social groups. So the question is, how do we beat our genes and find like-minded community apart from something similar to religious belief in the modern environment?
Great question. Just superb. I would say that the following is true, and that is that the modern environment is, everywhere we look, it's a two-edged sword. When it brings us something that is very valuable, there's usually something that's being taken away. Now, at the end of the day, the net positive is huge. It's not even close. We are much better off in the modern environment than we were in a primitive environment. However, that doesn't mean that every advance is purely an advance. So, for example, in something that's been very close to my career for the last 20 years, the extraordinary availability of processed foods that will keep people alive and can be stored conveniently, and so that can be used, sort of indefinitely into the future. This is fantastic. I mean, our ancient ancestors couldn't have imagined such a thing. But then it gets better. Then you get to play with the food, and you get to make the food more calorie dense than it ever was before, and then it tastes better, and it's very exciting. So that's good. And now we go 100 years of this, since the early 1900s, with the dawn of refrigeration and Clarence Birdseye and a bunch of innovators along the way. And then pretty soon we got the modern environment with processed food, and everybody's walking around overweight, and nobody wants to sleep with anybody because everybody's fat. Okay? So this is this extraordinary price that has essentially, it's been like an atomic bomb over the mating market. It has come about because of an extraordinary advance in human technological abilities. So we sure as heck don't want to go back to an environment of scarcity, but we do see the double-edged sword. In this case, this person is talking about a double-edged sword, and that is that when your community was, in fact, I mean, when it was you and your group against the hostile forces of nature, it meant that life, all of life, was filled with meaning. It was important to essentially do your best very often, because there was immediate impact not only on your own life, but on the lives of people very close to you, and then even on the lives of people that were not so close to you, but were pretty close to you, which was the rest of the village. This village might only be 35, 50 people, not very much, but there was your actions were having a substantial impact on pretty much everybody that was important to you. That is lost in the modern environment. People do jobs that it doesn't matter if they're there or not. And so they do not feel as if their work is important, that their contribution is significant, and it's essentially their rational indifference to that process is reasonable. A whole heck of a lot of people couldn't care less about any political situation, despite how much noise there is about it. The truth is, most people don't vote, and most people really don't care, and that's actually a good thing. It's actually a wonderful realization when it dawns on you that it really doesn't make that much difference who's in power at any given time. It's not going to make much influence on your life one way or the other. And this is a great thing. It is terrific that we are now so independent of each other. We're even independent of the leadership in our sort of dominance hierarchy, as it were. This is fantastic. Civilization is about this sort of independence. It's a dream to not be dependent. However, there's a double-edged sword, and the double-edged sword is that, wow, if that's true, then I'm not very important. Okay, so and my actions aren't very important. All right, so behind this, we actually see a feeling of not really earning that much esteem from anybody that matters. And so we lose this close connection and sense of shared fate, and the importance of our individual actions that would have been literally normal course of events for anybody living in a natural environment for people. Now, so what do we do about this? Well, you will see, here's what we're not going to do. I don't think it's very practical to think that you're going to join some community of people that are living together to try to, quote, better the community as a group. That's a communist hippie cult, and that's all going to fall apart. We don't have to do that, so people aren't going to do it. And if you join any group of people that is trying that, you're going to quickly find that communism is an utter failure, and that everybody's going to be trying to piggyback and slough off and essentially ride on other people's efforts. And you're going to be, if you've got any conscientiousness and any work ethic, you're going to be quickly disillusioned. So that isn't going to fly. What we're going to do instead is we're going to be a part of projects that mean something. And if you become a part of a project that means something, then you can have a great deal of fire and camaraderie among like-minded people for that component of your existence. That's a good thing. So let me give you some examples where people find this. They find it in competitive situations. For example, actually, people will find it in the military, believe it or not, in their platoon and in their group and all that sort of thing. This is getting much closer to a Stone Age environment where they feel like they are interdependent. We don't need to do that, but you might, and if you did, you might find something akin to what we're talking about. But you could also you can see it in sports teams. So you will find that people that play together in sports on teams that are where they're serious about what it is that they're doing, and everybody's actually trying to optimize their abilities and the abilities of the group, you will find that people will make friendships that will last a lifetime, and that they will look back on those times as some of the very best times of their lives. So you can see evidence of what it is that this questioner is talking about. You can see how important those experiences can be for people when they have been through circumstances like that. But we don't have to do that either. If you're not an athlete, we don't have to do that. We can do things like I once belonged to the Rotary Club, and these guys, I probably said this like 6 times, but I'll say it again just in case I haven't said it. These guys would go down to like Guatemala. A group of them would go down there, once a year, and they'd spend 2 weeks there, and they'd go down there and they'd build houses for poor people. And they would come back exhilarated. And the reason why is that they were doing things to the very best of their ability. They were learning as well as they could, dealing with an adaptive problem. There was people that really appreciated and could use what it is that they were doing. And they were giving them esteem signals, and they were actually earning from each other the esteem that said, hey, you were willing to pitch in and do some suffering down here side by side and work hard in the hot sun. And, that means you're a heck of a good human that I can really count on. So you're no wimp, and you're not lazy, and you are willing to contribute. And so these are fine displays for indicating your utility potentially as a coalition member, i.e. a friend. And as a result, this is exactly the kind of thing that I would say that you would. This individual needs to be looking to add to their life. So I don't mean joining Greenpeace and then answering the phones on Sunday afternoon. Like, forget it. Do something that actually requires some serious effort, where you feel like you are literally helping something or someone directly, and you can see the influence of it, and that you're doing it as a group so you can each watch each other put your shoulder to the wheel, and that it needs to be, hopefully there's people in that group that you will admire their efforts and their energy, and yet we don't have to make a career out of it. We can make periodic experiences out of this, and I think we can decorate our life with memories and potentially have feeling like we have vetted some people as potential friends that have actually run a gauntlet and shown us that they've got some backbone and that they would be potentially worthwhile to add to our own personal coalition. So this is how I would go about adding that to your. People do this incidentally. It just occurred to me. That's what startups are. So I've had clients that had already made about all the money they needed to make, and they're looking for something in life, and nobody really wants to hire them because they're a little over the hill. And I just tell them, hey, listen, do anything for a startup. Get in the middle of something that looks exciting where a bunch of greedy people are looking to try to get rich by working really, really hard, and they are feeling like they're interdependent, and there's only like 16 of them or something, and they feel like they're on the clock because they're going to be out of venture capital soon, and it's win or lose, and it's sink or swim. And that is exactly the kind of excitement. You don't want to actually have your career and finances dependent on these things if you could help it. Maybe it's a fun thing to do for young people. Otherwise, it's a thing to do for people that don't really need the money but need the excitement. And so anyway, these are things that a person can do to get that sense of shared fate and a sense of community that they can decorate their life with it, rather than trying to make their life embedded in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
All
it's interesting that you say that. I remember a few years ago, I was working at the True North Health Center, and I had some extra time, and I thought, let me try to do something for the community.
I didn't really notice that you really worked there. I couldn't resist. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. So I decided there was a program called Habitat for Humanity in California, and they go around, they build houses for underprivileged people. And so I thought, here I am. I just went on YouTube, learned how to use a hammer, and I was getting ready to go there and learn how to hammer a nail into a couple of things. So I show up, I'm trying to make conversation with everybody, and no one's really giving me any signals. Well, I start trying to make conversation with a couple of people. It turns out they're all on parole, and they're there like court mandated. They've got to volunteer, and so it was a fun little experience. But it was just funny because they looked at me like, "Why are you here like on your own? Why is nobody forcing you to be here?" I thought, well, I guess there we go. So. But yeah, Dr. Lisle, did we lose you? Uh-oh. Okay. Well, looks like Dr. Lisle? Dr. Lisle, did we lose you? Okay. Well, it looks like Dr. Lisle got a little disconnected here, so we're going to wait for him to come back. But it's very interesting about building this community because I remember watching a lecture. Yep, Dr. Lisle, you back on?
Good. Yes, I'm back on. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so I remember I was saying that you talking about building a community and how nowadays in the modern world it's much more difficult to do because you really get esteem signals from the right places because no one's really dependent on anybody. And I remember you saying something in a lecture that people will do many things as a display to others, including getting healthy and other things. And so when there's nobody to display to, you really figure out why you're doing something. So I just thought it was interesting.
All right. Well, let's head on. What else we got?
Okay. All right. Next question. This is about getting over an ex's past. Dear Dr. Lisle, I've been dating a guy for just over a year now, and I'm lately finding it hard to get over his sexual past. I feel that because I'm not as experienced as him, not having as many sexual partners as he has, that I kind of feel resentment and jealousy and anger towards his past. I know it's silly to feel this way because he's with me now, and I should not dwell in the past, but I often find myself thinking about it and getting upset because of it, which makes me angry and closed off towards him. We dated long distance for the majority of the past year, and there was an issue that arose while long distance between him and another girl, which made things a bit rocky. But we both stayed faithful to each other, and now back in the same location, and things are going really well. This is happening more and more, and I feel that it's come to the point where my feelings are negatively affecting our relationship, so I would like some input. Do you know why we get jealous and upset over our partner's sexual past and the reason for it? What's your advice for dealing with this?
Well, there could be a number of issues here, but what we're going to do is we're going to focus on what I think is probably the main issues, and we'll take a guess at it, and we'll try to figure out if there's anything that we can say that might be helpful. Now, remember, we're going to start at the beginning as to figuring out what feelings are. So feelings are they're signaling devices. And there are different kinds of feelings. There's feelings that are signaling devices for the individual themselves. In other words, a calculation of the value of whatever the stimulus input, informational input is. Then there's also another kind of feeling where we not only feel something, but we are actually designed to communicate it, to actually signal that feeling to someone else. These are strategic manipulative processes. So in this case, and then of course things can be both. So in this case, this sort of anger, jealousy, resentment, etc., this strikes me as a signaling device to this young lady, or however old she is, I'm assuming young, it's actually signaling to her that she is in danger, that she's basically committed to this person in what she hopes to be a monogamous sort of long-term pair bond, which means she is vulnerable. I noticed that they've been dating for about a year, but a lot of the last year has been long distance, and then there was some there was some serious threat from some competitor while he was gone. Well, I can't really do the math in my head without a calendar, but it sounds to me like they have not spent that much time in the same place. They've spent a lot of time not in the same place, and when they were not in the same place, this man, who obviously has enough sexual cachet that he's had a lot of partners, had another possible partner that he was looking at while he was in the relationship with this person. So I would expect that if this person's brain was functioning properly, that they would essentially be nervous, anxious, and potentially feeling the threat that they could get dumped, and or that they could essentially be two-timed, etc., and ultimately being dumped by a competitor. Now, the fact that they're thinking about the person's past is simply nothing other than reviewing the evidence about whether what this person's sexual psychology and sexual success is like. So it sounds like the person has been significantly experienced, and therefore it is not, it doesn't take an act of Congress for them to get into some other woman's bed. At which point, if you're the person that's with him, you could easily be feeling like that this is not that secure of a situation. So she is also signaling to him, with her anger and irritation, that she doesn't trust him. Okay, so this is a legitimate signal to essentially have him be on his guard and to try to do the extra work to essentially signal to her that she's very important. Okay, that he needs to be sensitive to that, and that this is not fun and games for her, that this is not casual mating strategy, and that she will consider it to be a very, very much a breaking of an implied contract if he dumps her and runs off with somebody else and two-times her. So she will be screaming bloody murder to the village, as women will do. And so she's essentially threatening him with that price should he have that up his sleeve and that be what he's feeling. Now, so that all being the case, it sounds like she's actually pretty happy, which also makes me wonder if she actually feels somewhat over-rewarded. And so a person that's over-rewarded is likely to feel very vulnerable and therefore have the resentment, jealousy, anger chip pretty darn active, a lot hotter. That doesn't mean that you're in a bad relationship. It just means that you're an exciting one for yourself, that you feel over-rewarded. That doesn't mean that the other person feels like that they are over-rewarding you. However, you are feeling vulnerable because you don't have enough reassurance that you may fully qualify. And of course, she's not getting evidence that she fully qualifies because there was some threat just recently here in the last year when he was out of town with some other girl. Okay, so this is a relationship that is fundamentally in its early stages, where the commitment process is early. Even though they've been, quote, together for a year, they haven't been together for a year. And so they're still getting to know each other. She's still finding out whether or not she qualifies fully. She's anxious that she's giving up her sexuality, i.e. becoming vulnerable as a female, under conditions of which she's actually not sure that she's actually got this thing in a secure situation. So this is, to some extent, this is almost, this is sort of standard operating procedure for a situation that looks about like this. So what would I tell you? I would tell you there's no big upside for making too big of a deal out of this. Remember, use birth control. Let's not be planning any weddings under these conditions. And essentially, one wants to have the spirit that this is an adventure, and it's a very good adventure, and so far so good, or pretty much so far so good. In order to attempt to shift the balance of your life in a positive way in situations like this, or in any similarity to this, there are many such situations in life. You want to see if you can morph your thinking toward what I call a position of power. And I've talked about this on previous podcasts, but a position of power is a psychological location where you have considered the worst-case scenario and you have come to terms with it. You essentially have thought about it enough and thought through the consequences carefully enough that you realize that you are going to, in fact, survive and that there's plenty to live for and plenty of opportunity in this life if this particular opportunity passes you by. If you don't have that attitude, then you do a lot of suffering. It isn't that you can create this attitude at will in your mind, but you can actually do the mental steps that can help push you towards a position of power. A position of power will require that you think through the worst-case scenario. So think it through. So let's think through, okay, well, what really happens? Let's just look at this thing. Let's suppose I find out that this guy's cheating on me 2 or 3 months from now, and I'm 3 or 4 months in, and I'm going to be so pissed off, and then I'm going to have to decide what I'm going to do about it, and then we're going to confront it. And, then maybe, I want to break up. He says, let's go to counseling, or he wants to break up, and I say, let's go to counseling. But the attitude should be, you know what? Whatever happens, happens. It's a part of the adventure. And you can't be very happy about anything unless it feels rare and exciting. If we held a Super Bowl every day, nobody would really care about it, you see. And so only if something is relatively rare is it valuable. And so this relationship has excitement to it. It wouldn't be easy to find something as good, or you wouldn't be excited now. But if you lose it, then it wasn't what we thought it was anyway. Okay? And so if the evidence comes to us that we don't really qualify, that he is going to two-time on you and eventually dump you, if that's what comes to pass, then that's what comes to pass. We have to have the attitude in this that we are essentially, as best as we can, realize that you're a modern woman with birth control in your pocket in a way that your Stone Age ancestors did not have. You can give yourself some latitude to be more vulnerable in this way, physically and psychologically, than they would have responsibly been able to do. Okay, so and that's what I would tell you. Worst case scenario, you're going to survive it. Let's give it some rope. Let's find out. So rather than trying to essentially take the temperature of the relationship or analyze in great detail where we stand, let's be patient and let the evidence tell us where we are. And in situations like this, I will tell people, you'll know a lot more in 90 days. Okay, so this relationship is pretty young. You'll know a lot more in 90 days than you do now. So there's no reason to freak about what his past has been. He's sexually attractive. He's sexually assertive. He will find other partners. The only question is he really happy and settled with you right now? If that's true, then you're going to feel more secure 90 days from now than you do now. And if that's not true, you're going to feel less secure, and you're going to be looking at a situation that may not fly. So far so good. Let it roll.
All right, next question. Dear Dr. Lisle,
right.
I'm a fitness competitor and trainer who posts on Instagram. I've had men contact me offering me money for situations with me, none involving any overtly sexual acts, but I assume they're at least fetish-driven. So the question is, what would be the reason for giving up a large amount of resources like money to have an encounter with a woman that doesn't involve either long-term pair bonding or casual sex?
Well, it does involve casual sex. I mean, that is what this is. So and so I would have to tell this person that certainly the men may say, hey, listen, we don't have to do anything other than this, or gee, I'd really like to meet you. Is that possible, etc. Hint. And they may feel either intimidated, or they may feel, obviously, because this person's not not an escort, and she's not advertising for this sort of contact. They're going to have to essentially try to remember what they're up to. They're attempting to negotiate with her a cost-benefit proposition that will be hard for her to refuse. So they want to see whether or not she will bite on the idea of a very minimum amount of sexuality in exchange for money. If she will do that, it would actually be more valuable to them if she was a little bit difficult about it, i.e. not a prostitute, because then she actually becomes more valuable for various and sundry reasons that are rather obvious if we think about them. And so as a result, these are overtures. So remember, when people are attempting to lure you into a relationship, what they do is they put their best foot forward, and they're trying to essentially give you a distorted vision of the value proposition. This is what every company does when they give you a big discount or a loss leader or free sample, etc. That's what this is. So essentially, they're offering her a free sample of their money, and they're saying, "Gee, all you got to do is just open the package a little bit. It's really everything's free. I'd just like to see you open up the little envelope, and I want to see your face if you're, and the rest of you, if you're dressed a little bit scantily and a little tight stuff. If we could just meet, and you could just open this envelope that there's going to be my money in it for you. I'm telling you, that's all I need. Okay, that's all I need." Well, that's not all they need. That's just a loss leader as they're attempting to negotiate their way into a casual sexual relationship of some kind. So that's the story, and so there's no real mystery there. It's just it's kind of interesting. Didn't know that was going on. I hadn't thought about that as an angle. Go ahead. All right, let's move on.
All right. Speaking of disagreeable, agreeable, conscientious, low conscientious, right?
Yeah.
The next question is about disagreeableness. So,
Okay.
as you said, Dr. Lisle, agreeableness may be the most sought-after personality trait in mates. But if you are born disagreeable or very highly disagreeable, is it possible to train yourself to be agreeable? If so, how? I've been working on this myself and find that if I concentrate, I can look for the good and argue or say nothing with potential males that are dating me. But is it possible to feel disagreeable but function as an agreeable person, essentially overriding this using your intelligence? Is that how we beat our genes, by just wrapping the myelin sheath repetitively to beat those instincts?
No. Okay. The myelin sheath, it has to do with learning motor skills. And so these are not motor skills. These are sort of personality characteristics which are not going to be subject to this. Could you actually execute behaviors that would make you appear more agreeable? Yes, you could, but it won't last long. In other words, life is too novel, and there's too many. As Mike Tyson used to say, when everyone would fight him, he would say, "Everybody has a plan until they get hit in the face." Okay, and that's how that works. And so, you could plan to disguise your disagreeableness, but as soon as you feel like your interests have been hit in the face, the disagreeable person will come out, and that will be that. So instead, what we're going to do is we're going to realize that your job is to look for an agreeable person to be on the other side of you. So if you're a 70th percentile, or let's say you're an 80th percentile disagreeable human, you're looking for an 80th percentile agreeable male that will be your mirror image on the other side. And that's how you're going to do it. And so you can also look for something else. The male doesn't have to be that agreeable. He might be 70th percentile agreeable, but he also might be, you're looking for emotional stability. People that are more than fair, in other words, very agreeable people. These people, if they are also emotionally stable, they can put up with some of your wrath and not lose their cool. And so it's not like our little person here we're going to assume she's 80th percentile disagreeable. She's not 80th percentile disagreeable all the time. Half the time, she's not even at 80. so she's actually halfway reasonable. It's just the other half the time she's unreasonable. And so we need a lot of that to get caught or absorbed by the other person's more than reasonable psychology. And then there's going to be a few times when, if he's at the 70th percentile and she's at the 80th, there's going to be intermittent conflict. That intermittent conflict is going to have to, it will cause turbulence in the relationship, but the turbulence can be muted by the other person's stability. And I'm reading some conscientiousness in this individual. They're also creative and pretty bright. So they're trying to figure this thing out. And if you get yourself a very good man who's just one heck of a kind and reasonable person, you should be fine. Trying to change yourself to appeal to the other essentially 70% of the market, you need to think of yourself as, remember, if you got yourself the top 10% of the market, the very nicest guys in the world, you'd be fine. Because this person is probably not at the 95th percentile or disagreeable. We're going to assume that she's at the 80th percentile. So all she needs to do is hit some guy that's in the upper 20th percentile or so. That's a lot of people. And so your job is to, however it is that you are searching for mates, you need to be looking for very pleasant people and emotionally stable people as your top priority. And that's your best bet for solving this problem.
It's only a matter of time before
Yeah, go ahead.
So it's only a matter of time before Match.com puts a Big 5 personality test before people sign up.
Yeah, it's interesting. Helen Fisher, who's an extremely capable thinker, she has been part of I don't know who she's been in bed with in the online dating arena. I can't remember, some of the big players. And she's come up with her little 4-type or 5-type personality, which is ridiculous. She knows better. So what they've done is they've made it a typology rather than essentially face the facts that there are not types of people. There are ingredients in infinite combinations. That's a very different concept. And so, in other words, they are aware of these things, but the concept of how personality is constructed is just a little too difficult to get it across easily and quickly. So everybody wants to default to the lazy strategy of calling things types. In other words, you're fill in the blanks with the Myers-Briggs idiocy. Okay. You're a thinker versus you're a feeler. Whatever it is whatever you're introvert, extrovert, whatever it is that they're talking about. They won't talk about these ingredients, but you can be thinking ingredients. Anybody that's listening here ought to know that the Big 5 is the way it is. And so this individual we all have an ecological problem, which is to simply try to find the locations, particularly social psychologically, in this life that actually fit us best. It's very much in the same way as trying to find the objective characteristics of an ecology. If you happen to like sun and you like it hot, then you ought to be working in Palm Springs. If you happen to like cold and the snow, then look for a job at the University of Minnesota. The same thing is true with respect to mates. And so obviously, there's a diversity of combinations that work, but in this particular person's problem, their particular problem is they need to direct their attention and not waste time. They need to direct their attention towards men that clearly signal that they are very pleasant people, very nice people. If the guy says, well, I like to do kickboxing, I'm saying in my spare time, hey, that guy's off the list. Okay, this is, you don't have pleasant people doing kickboxing. That guy is at least at the 50th percentile for disagreeable. So have the guy that says he likes flowers. Just kidding. The people will signal these things in their prose, and they will certainly signal them very easily in a phone conversation. And so you don't have to spend a lot of time. You're Mr. Right for this person is a very pleasant individual.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit for the listeners who haven't delved into this a lot, the big five personality characteristics we've talked about in previous podcasts, but the reason why it's superior to that of the typology and the Myers-Briggs is the big five was discovered rather than just randomly invented, right?
Yes. Big five came as a result of advances in mathematics that took place in the second half of the 20th century, and it was first evidence of it was in the early 1960s, but then it got forgotten for more than 20 years. So 20 years later, with computers sitting on the desktops of personality researchers around the world, and statistical packages finally available that were capable of analyzing large amounts of data well, and the invention of a mathematical process called factor analysis. These things all led to the discovery of a five-factor model that really tells us that personality is essentially in five ingredients plus intelligence. Now, there are other ingredients, but they're not major ingredients. So that's why we call these the big five. So the big five are openness to experience, conscientiousness, sociability, i.e. introversion, extroversion, agreeableness, and finally emotional stability. And so these things are the basic major variances. Just as in athleticism, it's how high can you jump, how tall are you, how what is your weight, how much can you bench press, and how fast can you run a mile. By the time we measure those five things, we have an extraordinarily good view of an athlete. And in the same way, by the time we measure these five characteristics, we have an extraordinarily good view of a specific individual and how they live their life, just what their life looks like. So this individual is obviously smart, conscientious, and disagreeable. And so she's butting heads with a lot of males that would otherwise be attractive people that she would be interested in. And this is a waste of time. So this person, if she knows she's disagreeable, she just is. There's just no way around it. You're not going to fix it. You got to go find the right sunshine for you to bask in, and that's how we fix this problem.
Fantastic. All right, Dr. Lisle, we have a caller on hold, so we're going to see what they have to say. So give me just a second.
Okay, all right.
Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, this is my name is Easy. I'm trying to get off everything, but just 1 second. Okay.
I couldn't hear your name, sir.
This is Easy.
Easy?
Yeah, that's what I go by. And
okay, all right.
Easy. Could you put your mouth closer to your phone so we can hear you a little bit better?
Certainly. Is that a little bit better?
Good.
Okay.
That's
Fantastic.
good. And I'm trying to follow, your conversation here, and I'm a big thinker. Like I think everything on. Like I think ahead, I think behind, I think over this way, I think over that way. Okay. Before I open my mouth. Okay. And I'm trying to follow you here, and I mean, I don't. This is the first time I've tuned into this show here.
Yeah.
I don't know if the host there has other people on there with different topics, but I'm trying to follow you, okay? And I kind of got an idea like where you're coming from, but like it's just not coming out good to me. And I'm listening to you, trying to just really absorb this because I like what I'm hearing, but it just ain't getting to me to where it's helping me.
Okay, hold on, Easy. Easy. You need to listen for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the deal. If you're a first-time caller, if you haven't heard the show, then the theories that are based on this information are actually pretty deep and pretty sophisticated, and they require a lot of learning to actually grasp where it is that I'm coming from. So I'm actually not surprised that you're having trouble following the logic. And so what I'm going to recommend is that we'd be glad to talk to you, but I would recommend that you need to listen to maybe 10 shows before you call in, and then after you've done that, you'll have a better grasp of where it is that we're coming from. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, I like.
Okay.
All right, Easy. Well, thank you very
We're
much
done.
for the call. Feel free to give us a call back. Listen to a couple of shows. We'd love to take your call when you can do that. All right. Thanks very much for the call. Really appreciate it. All right,
Very
Dr.
good.
Lisle. All right. Let's go on to the next question. One more question.
All right.
Okay.
We'll take one. Good.
All right. Dear Dr. Lisle, if a woman says to you that her being single comes up as a strong reason to not eat healthy or to lose weight, to the point of trumping her own transient desire to eat right and look good, how would you help her find motivation within herself? And what would you say to help her?
That's a strange question. So let me get this straight. So being single is a strong reason to not eat healthy or to lose weight. In other words, she wants to be single. And on the other hand, part of her is that what I'm getting here?
I was thinking that because she's
yeah.
single, she has nobody to impress. Maybe that's what it was.
Oh, okay. Okay, that I can see. And how would I get her moving the right direction? Because she's single, I see. So there's no direct threat of a mate getting disinterested and leaving because she's already in a situation where she's single. Okay. So here we are.
Someone's been single for a long time, and so it's just kind of a little cycle.
Right. So what's happening here is that the person may feel like they're essentially uncompetitive where it is that they're sitting. And let's just imagine a standard human. Standard female human is a standard woman in the United States is by her 36th birthday, she's 40 pounds overweight. So that's the statistical mean. So at 5'4" and 166 pounds, she is struggling. And if she's sort of eating the standard American diet, that's exactly where she's going to find herself typically on average. This is going to be, let's suppose she's been single, no relationship for the last 10 years, and sort of time is whiling away, but she's okay. She's not miserable, but she's single. And so how would I get her to find the motivation within herself? Well, what could I say that would be useful? I think that there are little details in a story like this, and every person's story is slightly different. And so I'm just going to make up a story and tell a story that would be fairly typical that I might run into, but that doesn't mean that is anything close to the story of the person that wrote this question or what it is that they were thinking, because there's too many individual details in here that could take us a different direction. But this can feel a lot like the ego trap. So let's suppose our young woman is 36 and 166 pounds, and she should be 126 pounds. And she has tried to diet now and then and lost a few pounds, but it was difficult. And so she wound up kind of where it is that she is now, and she doesn't have a lot of confidence that she could do anything about it. And she doesn't have a lot of confidence that if she were to go on Match.com, that she's going to be able to attract anybody that she would be attracted to anyway. So essentially what you have is very low motivation that is due to what we're going to call low confidence or low self-efficacy, that she could actually change the situation in any substantial way that would really shake up her life in a positive way. So what I would do, essentially educate this person about what it would take to get to somewhere that would be very different. Sometimes we're looking to set goals, only the goals that you can control. That's what I call micro goals, and that we don't want to ego trap people. We want to get people feeling the self-esteem that comes with daily execution of a good overall master plan. But sometimes we also need to realistically dream pretty big. The motivational speaker Jim Rohn in the 1970s had a saying about how big your goals needed to be. And his description was, they need to be big enough to turn you on. And so if I was with this person, I would be asking them, what do they most want? What do they really yearn for quietly? And if it is the intimacy of a good relationship, then we need to talk about what steps would be required and what's really in front of us that may be stopping it. And in this case, in this example that has been given to us, it might be the 40 pounds that stands between her and actually being competitive to the point where she could earn her way through competition to a position where she could actually find somebody that they would be strongly mutually interested in each other. Now, I would also explain that this is doable without personal starvation, and that you do not have to be crazy, and you don't have to wire your mouth shut, and you don't have to go hungry, and you don't have to do any of those things that everybody does to try to be slender. You do not have to do this. You have to know how to do this properly, what the right foods are and the right strategy is, and you'll find this on John McDougall's website in the webinars that I have done. One of them is called The Slow Fast Way, and a more recent one is called The Conditioned Cram, where I explain the nature of classically conditioned systematic overeating. So there's not that much to learn. There's a handful of things that this person would need to learn, and I would look them in the eye and I would say, this is something that you can do, okay? This is not easy, and the world isn't going to just give it to you easily. But this is doable, and it is very doable. And in a matter of months, we can turn your life around. And we can put you in a position to actually be feeling very good about yourself, being very competitive, and being in a place where if you met somebody wonderful, you'd be ready. That's the kind of thing that I would say to them. In other words, I would signal to them that I believed that it was very possible for them. I would not say that it was easy. I would say it's going to take diligent effort, and that it will not take some superhuman effort, because that it will not take. It will take the right knowledge and execution of the correct fundamentals, which is usually what it takes to compete well in anything. So that's how I would do it, and that's where we would go with that.